It's BourbonBlog.com live. I'm Tom Fischer here with my good friend, Master Distiller Brandon O'Daniel from Copper and Kings in Louisville, Kentucky. How's it going, Brandon?
Tom's absolutely fantastic, sir. I appreciate you having me this afternoon. Thank you.
It's a real pleasure. We're already starting. I actually had a cocktail that we made with some of your bitters and some of your American brandy, and you even have your own cherries too, don't you?
We do. We are a one-stop shop these days. Not only do we make the spirits, but we make all the condiments that go along with it.
I like it. It's delicious stuff. We're going to talk about some of your new creations in just a moment, like the Brewski that really was born out of the need to rescue some beer that wasn't going to be consumed from Against the Grain. And also we just threw a story up yesterday on BourbonBlog.com about the new Bardstown Bourbon Company finished orange Curacao barrels. So check out BourbonBlog.com for both of those. But you guys have been pretty busy, haven't you?
You know, we try to be. The moment I start to sit still, I get a little bored, and then I get in trouble. So Joe always likes to make sure that he has plenty of projects for us to do, and so far we've not run out of any.
Excellent. So what has been happening there? And again, we appreciate everybody who's joining us on Bourbon Blog Live. If you have any questions, ask down below. What's been happening there at Copper and Kings, Brandon?
Well, you know, I mean, unfortunately, since the pandemic, things have slowed down a little bit. We were running tours 7 days a week. We're now just doing tours on the weekends. Okay. Alexander, our rooftop bar, has opened back up, and we're open Wednesday through Sunday from there, I think 5 to midnight. But during the day and through most of the week, it's literally just myself and 2 production guys, and then I've got a couple of accountants. So we're trying to keep the lights on, and definitely our orders are picking up, and we're pushing quite a bit out to other states. But we're still not having, you know, that one-on-one contact that we were really, you know, used to and built the business around, unfortunately.
So the good news is that the tours are up and running on the weekends, yes, and the rooftop bar is open, and of course, one of our favorite places and one of the best views in all of Louisville, right?
Man, it is gorgeous. Best view of the city this side of the river for sure.
Yes, it is. So let's talk about, well, why don't we go right into talking about, because this is one of your newest creations, which I'm a big fan of. I've tried a little sip of it, and it has quite a story. And quite a name too. It's quite simply Brewski, not spelled quite like the Brewski that some of us say. You know, you may hear in more what you find more in the north. They say, let's go grab a Brewski maybe. But I love this. Tell us about this.
So basically, Brewski is a project that we came up with a few years ago, and it is small batch distillation of technically what would be finished craft beer. So this particular bottle is a collaboration with Against the Grain, and this one's actually been a little bit in the workings for quite some time. So a third of this batch is the Bo and Luke, which we distilled 3 years ago. And it's been sitting in a 53-gallon barrel, just kind of hanging out, listening to music in the basement. Then last year, Jerry at Against the Grain had a little extra beer right around, I guess, January of 2019. And he brought over maybe, let's say, 800 gallons, and we distilled it and threw it in a couple of 53s and just kind of put it in the corner. And then when the pandemic happened, we were getting a lot of calls from beer brewers saying, you know, we've got this beer. We don't know what to do with it. It's going to be, you know, it's going to go bad, and it's going to cost us more money to try to bring it back. Do you guys want it? So we took in about 2,000 gallons of Against the Grain beer, distilled it all down. And then I took the stuff we did a few years ago, the stuff we did last year, and then the stuff we just did here during the pandemic, combined them all together. And then here you've got a little charity offshoot in 375s at 100 proof. And if anything, it is full of super funk. And is very Against the Grain forward.
Yes, it's incredible. We'll try and step here in just a moment. And again, how old is about each of these expressions that are in this?
So, I mean, I guess technically, if we're going to look at the rule books, you know, we're probably only 6 months old. If we're actually going to look at the spirits and break it down, I've got a third of it that's 3 years old. I've got a third of it that's 1 year old. And then I got a third of it that's about 6 months now.
Wow. So it's a variety of ages. It has some nice
hodgepodge. It is a straight hodgepodge of alcohol, and good mistakes and bad mistakes and just circumstances, just to say the least, I guess. But,
Well, and again, part of it is because it's not that people didn't want to drink. People love Against the Grain. It's one of my favorite breweries.
Beer.
It's because the beer wasn't going to the bars because of the shutdown, right?
Correct. We just didn't have the clientele going to the bars and restaurants to get rid of it, and where it's being kegged, you've got an expiration date on those. So we kind of took a bad opportunity and turned it into something interesting and good, and I'm pretty pleased with it overall.
Yeah. Well, let's have a taste here again. Distilled spirits from grains. So it's like a whiskey, but you can't really call it. Basically, it's making a whiskey, but it's not the TTB definition of a whiskey, right?
Correct. Yes. This was just done for fun, and we're just kind of helping out some guys down the road that we really enjoy hanging out with. But it's just super funky.
This is beautiful. I've had judging competitions before and trying what different distilleries have done. I've had the type of beer whiskey we're talking about. And we can call it a beer whiskey because that's really what it is.
That's really what it is. Yes.
It's a beer whiskey. It's aged in barrels. And what kind of barrels are you guys using then?
So these were actually going in 53-gallon used bourbon barrels. I think this particular batch came out of a Heaven Hill barrel. Yeah, but nothing really descriptive, just a used bourbon that we had at the moment.
Used bourbon barrels, and then it is this, and you've distilled it. Of course, everything that you all do has this really beautiful DNA, this softness. It all goes back to your stills. I'm getting some of those like brandy notes, like almost because I'm so used to your brandies, right?
This type of still that we have being a pot still, this particular batch was distilled exclusively on a 50-gallon pot, Sarah. I personally think, and it's exciting to hear you say it as well, that you can taste that pot. And I think, our pots make a very distinct spirit, whether it be a brandy or a gin or, in this case, a beer whiskey. It's just that particular style. And with it being a pot still, each one of them kind of has their own nuances that tend to go from spirit to spirit.
And while we have and of course, I'm sure we will continue throughout the show, but as we're tasting this, while the audience is really interested in this, I see several of them commenting about the Brewski. People can buy this on your website, and there's a special way this helps support a great cause right now.
Correct. Yes. So we're doing a voting cause with this. I think it's Rock to Vote. It's $35 of $375, and we're doing curbside delivery. Actually, if you call and get a pickup Monday through Wednesday, there's about an 80% chance I'll be the one that kind of runs out to your car to drop it off. But yeah, it's just a good little charity fund that we've done with us and Against the Grain. We do Brewski with other distilleries or other breweries as well. This particular run with Against the Grain inside of the brandy world.
I love it. So again, from several different runs from Against the Grain, are these several different kinds of beers too, all kind of mixed together that they would have?
Yeah. So the first one was the Bo and Luke, which is a chocolate based stout, and then the other two were actually Citra Ass Down, which is their IPA.
So I like that.
It's a great name. Yeah, you got to give them that. It is a fantastic name for beer. And it's an
IPA. It's a chocolate stout. So you do get some of these. I get a little of that chocolate note. I get that elegance from the stills. And really, as long as I've been tasting beer whiskeys, there's some really good ones out there. But this truly is one of the most elegant, splendid, soft ones I've ever had, to where I get the hops. I get the fact that it's a beer style whiskey, but it has this softness that really comes across like a very elegant whiskey, brandy. It's sort of everything in one, right?
Yeah, it kind of scratches all those itches. Thank you very much for that compliment.
Yeah, no, it's so good. It's so good. Even the chocolate stout, I think I'm kind of getting those chocolatey notes towards the end.
Yep, a little bit of citrus there in the background. For as young as it is, it turned out really well, and the three iterations really blended quite well together. I couldn't ask for a better spirit to come through out of this program.
Oh, it's very nice. And again, use bourbon barrel, 100 proof, 375s. These are $25 on your website, right?
Yes, sir.
And again, the profits go to Rock the Vote. What a great cause to support. Just go right on to copperandkings.com and pick up one of these. And you got to be close to Louisville or in Louisville, pick it up. And really, truly something I think might maybe a real collector's item at some point, considering every element that went into this. You all do some great experiments. What other kind of things you've been experimenting with there?
Thank you.
Any other experiments you guys have had going on?
So far as some other experiments, we're still in the gin world, and we're still doing a few gins. I've got a lemon gin that I'm trying to kind of to knock out. We put a few runs in the barrel, but I'm hoping it's going to be a clear spirit. The other day we did a bunch of bitters. Of course, those old-fashioned bitters have been a crowd pleaser. Since we started doing them. But really these days we're really just kind of getting excited about the 2020 harvest. It's been a very rough year as far as the virus and stuff, but actually agriculturally it's been really nice. California's been a little warm. Of course, they've got some fires, but we're a little further south than what those are, so we're not expecting to have that impact in flavor profile. And I believe our first vineyard for our batches got picked up, say like September or August 5th or 6th. So we're really starting to get some stuff in, and come Halloween, our stills should be up and running again at full force.
Excellent. And when is that harvest? What is the harvest season for you guys then? What does that look like?
So right now we're going into the grape harvest. We harvest 3 varieties. We do a Chenin Blanc, a French Colin Bard, and Muscat Alexander. All 3 varieties are coming outside about an hour and a half, 2 hours outside of the Fresno region, but all there in the Central Valley. Now, because we're doing a brandy instead of a wine, actually our grapes come out first because I'm more interested in the pH and the acidity. I want a very, very low pH and very high acid. So then when we make that wine, even though it's not going to be the most palatable and be a little sharp to, just to drink as a raw wine, when you go to distill it, because those acids are so tight and so sharp, it carries through and keeps that spirit very sharp and crisp coming off the still. So you don't have a flabby, lackluster spirit. You in fact have something that has a little bit of sharpness and that can withstand that barrel. Because as soon as you put it in that barrel, they're going to start fighting, for a little bit there before they can figure out how to get along. And if you don't put a spirit in there with a little bit of backbone, that barrel ends up eating it. And at the end, all you have is, an over-oaked an alcohol instead of anything that actually shows true characteristics of the fruit.
Gotcha. Brandon, are you able to hear me very well? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Can you hear me okay? I tell you what I might have you do, and this often happens with lives, and no worries, because we're glad to have you joining us. I may actually have you remove the headset and microphone and the ear set, and we'll see if we can hear you a little better. I think Brandon is frozen now. Can you hear me, Brandon? All right. I think Brandon is frozen. We're going to see if we can bring him right back on, and I'll just text him and let him know if he can come right back on. I'm going to say try logging back in and use no headset, and we're going to see if we can. He just it froze. So, but while we're doing that, I want to tell you again what we're trying again. The Brewski, which is brand new from Copper and Kings, distilled from grains with hops and finished in oak barrels. Again, it can't really be called whiskey, but it is a whiskey because it's being distilled and then it is going back into the barrel. It was a stout, he said, a chocolate stout, and also an IPA from Against the Grain. Some of this being beers that they were not able to sell because of the pandemic. And I've actually also been trying a cocktail made with their American brandy from grapes. So here we go. I think I see Brandon back here because we want to make sure you're hearing all the great things he said. And we're going to see if we can hear him. Can you hear me okay, Brandon?
Sorry, Tom. Technical difficulties.
No worries. No worries. Hey, you know what? The good news is I had a drink. I have a couple of drinks surrounding me. So
break.
So let's go back. Talk about the harvest, the harvest, because I know it's different for grapes, apples than it would be for the typical distilleries in Kentucky making whiskey. Talk about that and how important that season is for you guys.
Okay, so right now we're entering into our grape harvest. We've been picking grapes out in California for the last couple weeks. And because we are making a brandy out of these grapes instead of a table wine, we're actually some of the first grapes to come out of the field. I'm extremely interested in the pH and the acidity. I'm looking for low pHs and high acids. So what that does is when the fermentation goes through all those grapes, you keep a lot more of those phenolic compounds together, and that allows me to pull those out through the distillation process. Instead of having a wine that's, say, at a pH of 3.5 or 3.7, where you'd see like a red table wine, we're closer to like 3.1, 3.2, 3.15. And that allows that spirit to actually have some backbone so that when it goes into the barrel, that barrel and that spirit kind of face off a little bit, and that barrel doesn't end up just overtaking that spirit. So if you're not careful, you just end up getting a very over tannin, over oak spirit that doesn't really have any characteristics from the original fruit. So it's my job as a distiller to decide when those grapes come out to make sure that those fruit characteristics last throughout several years in the barrel and into your fifth of brandy.
Incredible, and such lovely brandies. About how long are these spirits usually in barrel?
So all of our traditional spirits, like the craft grape and our American apple, are a minimum of 4 years. The Butchertown is typically aged for about 5.5 and 6 years.
Yes.
Of course, we talked about this Brewski and this little fun project. You know, those ages vary anywhere from 6 months to a year. But we try to at least have almost all of our single barrels and our gins and stuff aged for at least 1 year.
Really nice. Cheers. Very tasty. This Brewski is something so special, and the softness along with that barrel is something that's just such a great sipper. I mean, it's really like nothing. If you've never had one of these, it's like nothing you've ever had before, isn't it?
Every time I drink it, I get something new, which keeps drawing me back to it for that experience. It's a flavor bomb from the front to the very back, and the longer it sits out, the more it breathes, and the more I get those chocolate and those citrus notes coming from the stout, and then of course that back tone of the hops from citrus down. It just plays very well together.
It's fun to see how those blends in this have given it a whole balance of flavors. As you've done these projects before, has it been a variety of beers before when you've used this kind of project?
It has, yes. We tend to go with the stouts and the porters, the thicker, the darker beer. Those tend to come over the still a little bit better and resonate in the barrel a little bit longer. We've done a couple Pilsners, but those have not really had the bones to kind of stand up. This one was actually my first IPA run with the citrus down. And I been wanting to mess with hops for a while on the pot, and we just hadn't really gotten the opportunity. So this was a lot of fun to play with, and I was extremely impressed about how those piney terpenes came over, and how you could really smell the hops. Like the entire distillery when we were distilling this beer just smelled like a huge hop garden. It was really nice.
So I mean, and you can get the hops on the spirit itself, but when you were making it, those hops just really
all the aromatics and we're blowing off that pot. And people were coming in, from off the street, asking what we were doing. It was, we're kind of known for our interesting smells there in Butchertown, but the good and the bad. So I always wear it as a badge of honor when, you can kind of smell my spirits over the rest of the neighborhood.
So always so many fun experiments, and just great core line there at Copper and Kings in Butchertown in Louisville, Kentucky. And again, they are doing, if you're in Louisville, you're passing through Louisville, they are doing tours on the weekends. And the again, your Alexander, your fabulous bar with a great view is open. What is it? You said Wednesdays through Sundays?
Wednesday through Sunday, 5 to midnight Wednesday through Friday, and then 12 to midnight Saturday and Sunday, with lunch and a brunch thing on Sunday. Food's absolutely fantastic. Cocktails are great. We're still open and doing great things. Please come and see us.
Incredible. All right, the Brewski's really good. What should we try next? What else should we talk about here? I got the American.
I've really been drinking on here lately has been this American craft apple.
Yes.
It's been a relatively new release for us here in the last, I guess, year and a half. Yes, that's the one. This is an American apple. 90% of it was aged in once-use bourbon barrels, all from in-state distilleries. Right now, I've kind of fallen in love with wild turkey. So a lot of these barrels are coming from wild turkey. And then 10% of it is aged in a number 2 char medium toast New American oak barrel that we have Kelvin make for it. Minimum age on this is 4 years old. Proof is 92. It's just a straightforward apple brandy. I mean, you can tell there's no big outliers. It's just nice and what an apple brandy should be when distilled correctly, in my opinion.
It is. It's vibrant. It has that nice softness. It has some good age on it. Again, the apples come from where again?
So we're running 15 to 18 varieties of apples, all out of Michigan. These varieties of apples are sharp to semi-sharp, mainly culinary. And because we're doing almost 1 million wine gallons of apple a year, those 15 to 18 fluctuate based on the market. But everything has to come out of Michigan. Everything has to meet my pH and my acid requirements. And the majority of these apples are grown within like 30 to 40 minutes of pawpaw, which I guess if you're looking at the mitt, is in the south left-hand corner.
Yes, such a great apple brandy, beautiful by itself on the rocks. It has that autumnal flavor, but not so much autumn in it that you feel like it's just for the fall. But of course, the fall is coming up.
Yeah, it is.
Great notes on the cinnamon notes on the end, sort of, right?
I really like it. It reminds me of kind of walking into the cold room of an apple storage area and kind of really smelling those nice overripe apples. It definitely reminds me of fall. I get a lot of that like apple core, apple pith, and a little bit of the apple in there. It's not a Jolly Rancher juicy fruit apple. I find that when I find those brandies, they usually have had acids added to them and they're artificially flavored. This, if it didn't come out of the orchard, didn't come off the pot, or didn't come out of the barrel, we're not allowed to use it. So it's just a very straightforward, classic apple brandy. I think that 10% New American oak gives you a little bit of that bourbon whiskey note that we as Americans, especially here in the Southeast, tend to love. So it's a bit of comfort food. At the same time, maybe giving you a little bit of a new experience as well.
Yeah, it is. First of all, I think would be great pairing with comfort food. It's great by itself. Would be incredible, and we have made some cocktails out of it. Old fashions. What kind of cocktail do we have with this one?
So I love a good old fashioned with this one. It's probably my favorite thing to make an old fashioned out of. That being said, as a distiller, most of my cocktails kind of consist of a glass and neat on a rough day. And if I'm feeling frisky, we'll throw a cube of ice in there. It also makes a good Manhattan. It goes great with a nice hot toddy come this cold weather. It's hotter than hell right now, but soon we're gonna start to see snow and frost on the ground. And this cracked apple will definitely warm you up in the right way.
Yeah, the pureness on this is it's so beautiful. It's so pure. It's so well aged, so refined. And again, all these products, all the brandies we're talking about, have always been designed to be, because obviously you're in Kentucky, a really bourbon lovers brandies, right?
It really has. I'm not asking you to take your bourbon off the shelf and replace it with a brandy. I am kind of hoping that you slide your bourbon over there and make a little room for mine. But yeah, we're making brandy for the bourbon drinker. We started with that slogan, before even the stills were put in. We're trying, brandy's been around forever. And the Europeans are doing a fantastic job with it. And there's a lot of, a few craft distilleries here in the United States that are doing some fantastic things as well. We kind of wanted to take brandy and put, an American stamp back on it. It's very much an American product. But it's been kind of forgotten about here in our recent drinking history. So at Copper and Kings, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're just trying to shine it up a little bit.
Yeah, and you all have been really, in my opinion, responsible so much for really the rise and really the return of great American brandies back to America, and really a true trendsetter for the brandy category.
It's a fun conversation to have. It's been forgotten and put on the back burner for a while. The fun thing about brandy is because I'm not making it in Europe and I'm not making bourbon or whiskey in the United States, the TTB has kind of relaxed its my barrel aging requirements a little bit. And it's opened up the used barrel market to me, which has been more than fascinating, and it's one of my favorite things to mess with at work. And it's just kind of really allowed us to take, a really nice apple and a really nice grape, put them in two different types of barrels, and have two different completely products come out, which has allowed us to expand our alcohol lexicon to as wide as it is now.
Incredible. It's the elegance, the pristine, the beautiful sugars that we know of French and European products, along with the attitude, the products, really the creativity of American distillery. It's everything that's great in one. And these are exactly the kinds of guests that we like to have here on our BourbonBlog.com/live show. Every evening, almost every evening, you can catch us here. Make sure you like this, bookmark this link, keep on coming back, follow us on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're watching us, and bookmark this link, because we're going to have all kinds of great guests coming up this week. And all right, so the apple's incredible. Should we try a little of your American?
Yeah, you want to try the American craft grape? That would be absolutely fantastic. We got do you have the American or the Butchertown?
I have both.
Let's start with the American.
All right. It's good to have one of each. This American brandy was one of your first products, right? Or your first one?
Yes. So this is our flagship product. This accounts for about 60% of our business. The profile on this one is very similar to the American craft apple we talked about. 90% of it is aged in one juice bourbon barrels, all from in-state distilleries. 10% of it goes into that toasted medium char, or toasted number 2 char, New American oak barrel. Minimum on this is 4 years, but right now our craft brandy is technically the bottle you should have and the bottle I have is about 5.5 years old.
Oh, wow. So it's about 5.5 years old.
Yeah, that's what we're pulling now.
This is some serious age, some really good age for a brandy like this.
It really is. Brandy, is a lot softer of a product. It's way more malleable than you see most of your grain spirits. So it doesn't really take such as long of an aging process as you would think, especially compared to your grain spirits, just because there's not as much fight there. So everybody kind of wants to get along and play as friends from the get-go. The American craft grape, it's made of 3 different grape varieties: Chenin Blanc, French Colombard, Muscat Alexander again. We use all 3 of those grapes equally in the same proportions. We feel like it's all 3 grapes are very easy to work with, grown in the United States, especially out west, but also have really nice backbones and heritage in the traditional brandy market. I mean, you'll find these grapes with backbones in France and in South Africa and in Australia, all over the place. So we kind of feel it's a nice blend between a traditional brandy and then a nice blend of, that rock'em sock'em robot American prestige that we all like to talk about.
Yes, it's there's this nice, of course, with the note or the nose, beautiful floral, has this. It has this really beautiful fragrance that's very elegant. Has a kind of a perfuminess, but not too sweet, but just very robust with that fragrance.
Yeah, that's the Muscat that's coming out in it, backed up with a little bit of that Chenin. The Muscat barrel age is absolutely fantastic, and it really keeps those floral tones.
Oh, yeah.
Then you add those bourbon notes in there that kind of balances and subdues, the overall brandy just a little bit, and kind of allows it to be a little bit more approachable for a whiskey drinker.
Yeah, and it is a whiskey drinker's American brandy. Those grape characteristics, all those characteristics in one. And you said to me earlier, I want to make sure we touch on, because I've been to your distillery several times and I'm a big fan of the tour. You will actually play music to your barrels 24/7, right?
We do, yes. So the main reason why we bought the building that we're in at Copper and Kingswood Distillery was for the basement. And it is 3/4 of the way surrounded by earth. So I'm much more interested in the barometric pressure changes to push that spirit in and out of the barrel than in the heat cycle. Now, granted, it gets cold in the winter and it gets hot in the summer, but the transition is not near as fast as you would see in an outdoor rick house. Now, that being said, I still want a little bit of agitation on those barrels. So what we've decided to do is we've actually placed 4 subwoofers that are about the size of a dining room chair. And they're all throughout this cellar of about 1,000 barrels. And then we have several tweeters and mids throughout. And then we blast music to the point to where you can pop the bung out of that barrel and look down in it and actually see that brandy pulsate and wave. Of course, our playlist changes day by day, whether it be an artist's birthday or an artist's death. We just did Justin Towns Earl yesterday for his passing on Sunday. But it's always something different. We try to be as hop or as hip as we can be. If you work at the distillery and it's your birthday, you can curate a playlist. You can also go on Spotify and listen to what the barrels are listening to live. But there is a little bit of science behind it. Again, we're trying to keep that slight agitation. So then when my pressure does change and that spirit does go in and out of the barrel and the barrel breathes, we've got fresh brandy, that's right there on the outside. Nothing is stagnant at Copper and Kings. And then really, honestly, if nothing else, it's really nice when we're down there rolling barrels to put on some good music and blast it to the point the entire building is shaking. It makes the day go by a little better. The right song, you can hear it in Alexander on the 3rd floor. So it's a pretty impressive stereo system.
So if it carries that kind of weight, that the sound goes that far, it's really working on that brandy. And I know you all have actually tasted the brandies, the barrels that are closest to the speakers, and you can tell a little bit of a difference, right?
I personally think you can pick up a difference. We have a speaker about every 20 barrels. And the 20th barrel is about as far away from the speaker as you're going to get. Wow. And out of that barrel 1 versus barrel 20, I have said for years, there is a difference in not only the way that it looks a little bit, but most definitely the way that it feels. It's got just a little bit more, funk to it, to say the least. A little bit wild.
It's incredible what music can do, the energy, the ambiance it fills it with, and the agitation. It really is amazing. And obviously, it's been tasting this good always. So it's something you guys know you got to keep on doing. And maybe other distilleries will give it a try, too. I think I've heard a few others have given it a try. I think you all kind of created something there. So.
And it makes your experience a little better. That's what it's all about. This business, half of it's the story. And if you can set yourself apart a little bit and be unique, not only with what's in the bottle, but what's outside the bottle and what you stand for these days, you've got a much better chance of really turning it into something that's going to last. And that's all I'm trying to do. I want to stick around and make alcohol as long as possible. I love drinking brandy, especially when it comes out of used bourbon barrels. So I've kind of hit my mecca, and I'm hoping to ride this wave for quite some time.
Excellent. And we'll try the Butcher Town here in just a moment, but I see you have some of your liqueurs there too.
I do, yes. We have an orange Curacao. Speaking of the Bardstown Bourbon release,
yep.
This orange Curacao is actually an apple-based spirit. Wow. It is at 90 proof. It has 5 types of citrus in it, plus a few other botanicals. And then we back sweeten it up to 10 bricks or around 10% sugar with orange blossom honey. It is an absolutely fantastic liqueur to use as a split or a modifier. And at the same time, because it's so high proof, I personally like it just on the rocks or neat. It's a delicious summertime drink.
Just great by itself as well. And of course, that Bardstown Bourbon Company just releasing their new bourbon finished in the orange Curacao.
It's a fantastic bourbon. I'm really excited for people to try that one. Super proud that I could have something to do with it.
And of course, you make a number of liqueurs, gins, absinthe. You make some incredible spirits. I mean, how many different spirits is it that you guys make?
Whew, that's a really good question.
I'm not trying to quiz you, bud. I know it's like a lot.
Yeah, we've got about 18 that we are kind of pushing on a pretty regular basis throughout, the nation and the core. And of course, depending upon where you are in the world, will depend upon what bottles are available in your market. But there's usually about a good 18 bottles sitting on the tasting line when you go through a tour. Right. Then there are several single barrels that we do and weird one-offs. We have a bottle your own station right now where I've got 6 barrels, all at cask strength, that are tapped. That we've kind of gone downstairs in the cellar and said, I like that barrel, and that barrel. put a tap in them. And then when you come to the tour, it's something you can get very exclusive to the distillery, and just another experience. So we're always trying to come up with something new. I've not gotten to every barrel in the world yet. So until I've touched my hands on every type of barrel, we're going to keep making new stuff.
The experiments are great. In addition to the Bardstown Bourbon Company, I know you all recently had a collaboration with Peerless, where they finished their rye in your used absinthe barrels, and then you all finished your brandy in their used rye barrels, right?
We did a great brandy in their used rye. Ours sat for a year. I'm pretty sure that theirs did as well. And then we were going to release that right before this pandemic and have a big family style meal.
Right.
And of course, that's kind of been pushed back. So we're kind of holding on to our side of things until we get through this. But yeah, it's delicious. Theirs is absolutely remarkable. It's a Sazerac in a glass right out of the bottle. Ours, the Grape Brandy plays so well with the rye. We released it at 108 proof. Perfectly balanced. It's a fantastic spirit.
Yes, I was actually supposed to be at that dinner. It was going to happen like a couple of days after the shutdown happened. I know it was like right there in that week.
Yeah, we just couldn't make it happen. It didn't feel safe,
Right, I know.
Customers are, first and foremost, their safety. So we're going to get through this and swing back around, and we'll all be sitting around the dinner table before you know it. I
look forward to some really good cocktails with you and tasting more spirits in person, Brandon. And let's go ahead. Let's pour a little out the Butchertown. I have a Butchertown here in front of me, and Butchertown being named after probably, if you're from Louisville, you're watching, but if you're not, this is the area of Louisville that you all are in, right?
That is correct. Yes. So this is the neighborhood known originally for butchers and brawlers, the working class. We had a major flood several years back to kind of knock that out. And a lot of the residents left the neighborhood. And really, when we moved in, I guess about 8 years ago when we bought the building, the neighborhood was needing a little bit of love and revitalization. There were a few fantastic markets there and a couple of bars and stuff, but it was a pretty sleepy neighborhood. And since then, with us opening up, we've got a new brewery that's opening across the road from us. And we're just super excited about this one. This one is actually kind of our reserve blend. This is a 4-barrel blend that I always handpick. 3 barrels are once used bourbon. 1 barrel is New American Oak. So we've gone from our official 10% to 25% New American Oak. This one's also at 124 proof. So this one's got a little bit of kick for it.
This is some serious proof, but it drinks so much lower. You can tell it has warmth, but you would never know it unless somebody told you, would you?
Never guess it to be 124, which tends to get me in trouble because I know it's 124 and I'm still like, there's no way. Well, of course we'll have another.
I just don't believe it.
But it just sips so smooth. You drop a little bit of ice in this one. It is absolutely fantastic. A good Manhattan or, of course, an old fashioned always goes so well with this one. But the fact that it's always, just a 4-barrel blend. These kind of are chosen by either we get, interesting used barrels, whether it be a Distillery Select or something from someone else. We'll pull those barrels aside. Or when we're dumping our traditional craft grape, we find a barrel that kind of sticks out a little bit. We'll pull it aside. And then we kind of go back when it's time to make Butchertown and kind of act like a bit of a puzzle and try to figure out how all 4 of those barrels fit together to make a very unique batch. So usually when you go to buy one bottle and by the time you finish it, you go back for another. You're usually on another batch, and there's a few minute differences here and there, which we like in the craft industry. It keeps me hopping, it keeps me interested. But it's just a beautiful, beautiful spirit.
So each of the batches, as you go about that process, Brandon, they're a little different. The flavors, there's a consistency, but they're slightly different, just to kind of be something unique, right?
Exactly. As a craft distiller, it's my job to make sure that bottle 1 versus bottle 100,000 tastes relatively similar. Now, that being said, there are going to be some differences. And we try Copper and Kings as much as we can to make the wave in between those, the bottle 1 versus the 100,000 to be as smooth as possible. But, if I was making the exact same thing every day and batch after batch tasted the exact same, I feel like I'd get a little bored. That's kind of why I've stayed on the craft side of things. It allows me to create and be, inventive. And then, I like to drink different things, whether it's constantly brandy or not. It's just nice to know, well, then, that was a little time capsule. And then once those 4 barrels are gone, that's it. And then we move on to the next one. That's exciting. And that keeps me excited.
No, I like that. I like the fact that it changes up some, and just wonderful. And I put up the website again so people can go to copperandkings.com if you're interested in ordering one of those brewskis or anything else you all are doing. Your store is open up. You can pick it up at the curbside, right?
You curbside 7 days a week. You can swing in and hit our front little gift shop there starting on Fridays at noon through Sunday. And then, like I said, please come by and say hello. We're definitely starting to open up. We are very safe. I've been making a lot of hand sanitizer for the distillery, and we've been doing extra cleaning protocols. Of course, the cool thing about Copper and Kings is we have those monster airplane hangar doors there on the production floor.
Yes.
So it's very open. There's a lot of cross breeze. Copper in itself is antimicrobial, so we're trying to stay as safe as possible.
That's good. That having that copper there helps too.
It does. At least make me feel a little better. And I'm feeling a little rough at the end of the day. I'll go give those girls a good squeeze, and it makes me feel good.
Give them a good squeeze. Check out Copper and Kings. That way you can also find out where to find these products near you. You all are in many, many states across the country, right?
I think we're in 42 at the moment.
Yeah, most all of them. So look out for Copper and Kings. If you're a whiskey lover, brandy lover, you've never had this. This is stuff that's really worth trying. That I think once you have it, you're going to want to have as a part of your bar to really mix up what you do with whiskey, with cocktails. Just such beautiful brandy to pair with cuisine, or just to have by itself. It's just it's so tasty. Again, the flavors you get off of Butchertown are what? What flavors do you usually get off of Butchertown?
I get a little bit of dried cherry and dried apricot. Of course, you get those vanillins from the barrel. This one's actually really nice.
This is great. This is really nice. This batch is really beautiful.
I get a pinch of cinnamon just on the back note, maybe a little bit of nutmeg. Of course, the vanilla.
Kind of this nice. To me, there's this nice, really light. They're just, though it's high proof, the sugars are just so light and fragrant all the way throughout. Kind of like a dusting of like powdered sugar in a really great way, like on a pastry or something. It's just
they allow it just to sit on the palate just long enough where you can kind of smack your jaws. The burn is not over extreme. You can definitely feel it, in the stomach a little bit. But it allows it to kind of sit and has that nice velvety sensation. The legs or the skirt all out the glass. I mean, the entire glass is coated with oil.
Great mouthfeel. Yeah, the mouthfeel's
fantastic mouthfeel. And then a lot of that is because we don't chill filter. So most of our barrels, the barrel entry proof goes in at about a 130 for our grape. We'll sit, like I said, a minimum of 4 years. And then when we pull it out, we're usually pretty close to that proof point. You may be a proof up or a proof down, just kind of depending upon where it was in the warehouse. And then we run it through a really coarse bag filter at cast strength. So if you cannot see it at cast strength, it stays in the bottle. So because we're just pulling out the char and the stuff you can see with the naked eye, we leave all those fats and oils and chondros in there. And I personally believe that's what allows our spirit to kind of linger so well on the palate, give you that velvety sensation, and to kind of allow that lingering taste, for a lot longer than you see in a lot of other brandies and typically a lot of whiskeys for that matter.
Yeah, there's nothing that quite has this mouthfeel. That I mean, with this particular one especially, this mouthfeel is so unique that you don't really see it on many whiskeys or brandies. So well done on all of these to you and your team, Brandon. So we've covered a lot here. We've covered Butchertown, the American brandy, the apple brandy, the new Brewski. Again, get a bottle of this Brewski, help support Rock the Vote, and have a piece of history and just something that's really delicious. What else is coming up? Anything else you're looking forward to as far as what's coming?
So we've been doing some interesting projects, and of course, what I've been most excited about this fall, you're not going to see for a while. We've actually been distilling some red grape varieties. So we've been bringing in some Zinfandel and some Syrah. both out of California. And then we've gone out and we've brought Zinfandel and Syrah wine barrels back and are aging those spirits in there. This will probably be a 6 to 7 year project. We've changed up our fermentation style. We're just acting like these red grapes are white, so we're not allowing them to sit on the skins and get any color. We're picking them a little earlier, and it's really brought in some fantastic flavors and tones that you don't typically see in brandy because most people use white grape varieties. So we set down, I think, 25 barrels of each this year, and we've been doing it for the last 2 years. So, here in the next 3, you should start to see that product line out, and it's super interesting, very, very different. Because the pH is a little weird or a little higher, the way these brandies actually sit on the palate just feels different. And I'm super excited to share these with everyone and have conversations like this where we can kind of really break them down and talk about those nuances.
So these are going to be some red wines. Again, which grape varieties?
So we did a red Zen and a Syrah, both out of California. They went back into 60-gallon wine barrels, both the Zen and Syrah, and they'll sit there for at least 6 years. Downstairs in the basement listening to music.
It's right as we speak. It's listening to music.
Right now, yes.
That sounds incredible. And the flavors that you hope to get off of those,
so those are going to be a little bit more where I find we're like this, the craft grape in the Butchertown. Those are a little bit more on the fresh fruit side of things, a little crisper. These red wines, I'm expecting to see a lot more baked notes, like a baked cherry, a baked grape, things on that nature. Over ripeness, really, really almost kind of like a fatty Chardonnay with like a malolactic fermentation. If you're familiar with the wine world, kind of how it has that buttery sensation on the palate. These are kind of be in that same wheelhouse. They're just kind of sit a little more forward on the palate, or a little more back on the palate, I guess. And they just rest a little different. They're just different, and they're very interesting. Kind of hard to explain.
That will be fun to look forward to that. Probably coming about in about, say, 4 years or so. Some of those.
Yeah, the one we just did, it's maybe about a 6-year project, but yeah, we're 2 years in, so 3 to 4 years, you should start to see at least a few creeps here and there, and then we hope to make this a nationwide line.
Nice, well done.
Thank you.
You guys are doing such a great job there at Copper and Kings, and you're such a talented guy. Brandon O'Daniel, Master Distiller, your team is awesome. We really appreciate you guys, and look forward to hopefully seeing you at some point in the near future in Louisville, Kentucky, there at Copper and Kings. And check out copperandkings.com to learn about picking up some of these spirits, or just to find it near you. Make sure you bookmark BourbonBlog.com live. My guest tomorrow, actor from many movies and Broadway, both Will Swenson and I, we're going to be tasting some Town Branch whiskey on camera together. And then on Thursday, we'll be pairing some plantation rum with Camacho cigars. So hope to see you then. Brandon, thanks for joining us. Thanks to all the joiners.
Thank you, sir.